Council meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Bergeron. Coos.
Here.
Harris.
Present.
Carlson. Here. Olson.
Here.
Severson.
Here.
West. Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, that's right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody.
Paying attention.
Okay, that brings us to communications. We just got some handed out about the front of the building. We have the KPD Central Dispatch failure of Nortel switching equipment. And we have, you guys might have seen the letters that have proposed to go to Congressman Young, Senator Begich, and Senator Murkowski. I was wondering if you guys had no problems with me signing these and sending them in support of getting a little, some land for timber through the state forest. Is there any objections? Hearing none, I'll sign them and send them away. Thank you. That brings us to persons to be heard. And Mr. Hudson, start us off, Steve.
Do I need to state my name?
Please.
Steve Hudson, 1027 Millar Street. And if I'd known I was going to be the first one, I would have waited to sign up. I'll be brief. I know you got a long agenda, but it's I'm just here to talk about under new business general government number 2, a request for surplus real property on Millar Street. I happen to be one of the property owners on Millar Street under 1027. I think it's in your packets. I'm not
Got
sure.
it. Yep.
The property, I didn't even find out about it until yesterday. When one of the other property owners, Mr. Johansson, contacted me about it. And he's against it, I'm against it. The property owner that is also, I think it's 10423, I think, is also against, under Upper Quinn. He's against this. But my wife and I had originally, when we had purchased our property, we had come to the city to ask about purchasing lots 38 and 39 under US 437. We were told, not by you guys, but by somebody at the city, that it would cost about $10,000 per lot. If you've ever gone, I'm sure you haven't, but if you had gone back into the back of that property, it's really not worth $10,000 per lot. But if you're going to be selling them at $1,000 per lot, like the request is, we're just requesting that if you do that and open up the surplus property, that we have the option to buy those pieces of, or those parcels. And I guess on a separate note, the other adjacent property owners are not willing to provide an easement. So that's really all I have to say, unless you guys have any questions.
No, I think those property owners were interested to see if the council was interested, and then if we were, then they were going to send out notices to all the property owners so you guys could make your comments. So you're starting early, great.
Okay.
Dick has a question for you, Steve.
What lot do you have?
We're at 1027 Millar, so that's,
27, I see it now, okay.
we actually have a utility easement across there right now, but
Anybody else? Thanks, Steve.
thank you.
All right. I have nobody else on the list, so who else would like to speak to the council? Step right up. Anybody else here to speak to the council tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on. All right, that brings us down to consent agenda. Trying to remember what I was looking at here. I know. Oh, I had both KPU items I was going to suggest under consent, and then the number A7, the financial year-end amendment. Does
Can we
anybody?
put vouchers in there too?
Or do we have to?
Let's make a separate motion on that. Okay. If we see it, then we'll go ahead and put those in there. Do we have a motion to consent?
I'd move to consent.
Madam Clerk, please read the items.
Okay, we've got approval of minutes, regular meeting of September 5th, 2013. Financial and compliance audit for the year ending December 31st, 2012. Amendment to 2012 audit services contract, Meekum Richardson and Company. Designated legislative grant agreement number 14 RR055, Whitman Lake Hydroelectric Project. And sole source procurement request for 25 kV switches, HD supply.
All right. Seeing no questions? Call the roll.
Harris.
Aye.
Coos.
Yes.
Severson.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
All right. Should we explain why you're on the phone tonight, Matt?
Yeah, that's. You want me to do it?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm allergic to latex, and the contents in the paints that they use in interior buildings has a lot of latex in it, and I have to stay clear for 48 hours after the last coat is applied. And I believe they were painting yesterday, and I'm not sure if they were painting today. So I've got another 24 hours at least before I can go back in the city. And I have respiratory and issues and physical issues. So.
All right, we know your weakness now. Just so in
One of
case
many.
people have seen you around town all day like I did, I was curious, so thank you. That brings us down to unfinished business item 6A1, use of Ted Ferry Civic Center as a venue for Ketchikan Fight Club competitive events. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
I move the City Council direct the city manager to execute a memorandum of agreement with Ketchikan Fight Club for use of the Ted Ferry Civic Center as the venue for its competitive events under such terms and conditions as determined appropriate by the City Council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Marty?
It looks like they've addressed all the issues that I had concerns about, and I think it would be worthwhile for us to give them another shot at it.
Anybody else? Dick?
Yeah, just two comments and maybe suggested changes. One, I don't have any intentions of giving anybody a liquor license. To do this, there's people that can contract it.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is a word that kind of bothers me is, I think it would be under maybe item 3 in the deal. It talks about, find it here again. A reasonable police presence. Reasonable police presence. Now, I can't define that word reasonable, so I think there will be police presence, period. And otherwise, I'm okay.
Carl, you got those? Anybody else who have a comment? Deanne?
I just wanted to clarify if all the costs to the city for any of the changes that have to be implemented are covered. There's no out-of-pocket expenses to the Ted Ferry Civic Center itself.
That's my understanding, Councilmember.
And that's what she's nodding back there. Any other questions?
Is staff happy with this?
I'll defer to the Civic Center manager. Rhonda, do you want to come up?
Come on up, Rhonda.
I need to introduce myself.
You bet.
Okay, Rhonda Bowling, Ted Ferry Civic Center Manager. And if I could comment to another one too, we did meet with Jack, Mr. Martin and I did while Carl was away, and I feel like it's a really reasonable solution, and I think they definitely should have another chance to do this. I will comment, Councilmember Carlson and Councilmember Coos, on the liquor permit. When I was managing the Civic Center before I had the girls 8 years ago or whatever, I didn't have, it was not any different with them having the liquor permit than someone else. I feel like they have a lot at stake with them having the liquor permit, and the other charitable organizations are able to have it as well. We could try it, but I didn't see any difference. So I think they probably have more at stake than if someone else did it. That's just my personal feeling. That's why I was okay with that.
Dick?
You know, explain other nonprofits having their liquor permit. Where do they get their liquor permit from?
They have to go through the Alcohol and Beverage Control Board. They have to,
Is it a one-time issue
it's just for that event, and they have to get the appropriate insurance, all the permits.
every time? Okay, because I just don't want to be in a position of somebody coming in here saying, hey, you gave this guy a permit and you won't give me one, and that's my problem. It's not with them, it's with
Right.
the process.
No, the process, they have to follow the whole process with the state, and I think it's a fair process.
Bob?
Yeah, the liquor license issue is just, I think, complicating the first step here. I think that you've done a real good job of going back and addressing the issues that we have. And I think that we should revisit the liquor license things maybe a little bit later, but I think we get through these first hurdles. I like what I see here. I think everybody's on the same page of what the bloodborne pathogen process is and all those kind of things. So, you know, at this time, I think that we could continue with a contract service, but as we progress and we see that we're not in conflict and things are running smoothly, then I would assume that they can come back and ask for that at a later date.
Go ahead.
I just want to preface it and say I don't have anything against the Fight Club. I just don't feel like our civic center is the appropriate venue to hold that type of an event. And I'm comfortable with Cadbury Civic Center's manager in her thoughts that this is going to work, but my thoughts are it's just still not the appropriate place. I hope it works out and that your facility doesn't bear the brunt of this trial. I just think that in the long run, a more suitable venue permanent, more suitable venue would probably be more appropriate, I think, for an event of this caliber. That's just my personal opinion, and again, I have nothing against the Fight Club. I would like to be able to go up and enjoy them as a family outing, but the way they're being conducted now, that's just not possible.
Thank you, Dean. All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, Ron? Go ahead, Carl.
Mr. Mayor, just to get the record clarified, the way the motion is structured right now, based on staff's report, the Fight Club would be able to apply to the state for a liquor license for a one-time event. If the council wants to change that, the time to make a motion to
Understood.
that effect before the roll calls.
I do not hear a motion. Call the roll.
West,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Harris, Severson,
So we're not addressing the liquor issue here, that's what you're telling me?
Nope, nobody made a motion. So it's what they recommended.
No.
Coos,
Okay, that passes 4-2. That brings us down to unfinished business item 6A2, award a contract number 1310, Berth 2, Port Security Building. Bam. I think we got a new number. We have a motion.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
In accordance with section 3.12.035 of the Ketchikan Municipal Code, the City Council approved contract number 1310, Berth 2 Port Security Building with BAM LLC in the amount of $159,000, authorizing a 2.5% contingency in the amount of $4,000 for a total project of $163,000, authorizing funds in the Port Division 2013 Berth 1 and 2 Rehabilitation Capital Account, and direct the city manager to execute the contract on behalf of the City Council.
Do we have a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Comments? Bob?
Well done.
Anybody else? Sounds good. Call the roll.
Severson,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Harris, Olson,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 6-0. That brings us down to appointments, boards and commissions, and we have Mr. Hashigan for the Harbor Department. There is a vacancy. Any objection? Seeing none, he's appointed. That brings us down to Ketchikan Public Utilities unfinished business, which we have none, so it takes us to new business, item 7A, General Government. Contract number 1311, Waterfront Promenade Master Planning. And we have a presentation from Historic Ketchikan. I see some Historic Ketchikan guys here. Are you ready to go, Terry? Yeah. Come on up.
require.
Do you need some lights off? And
Want to state our names? Terry Wanzer, 435 Hillcrest, President of Historic Ketchikan, and Stephen Reeves. What's your address, Steve?
5 Creek Street.
Number 5 Creek Street, Executive Director of Historic Ketchikan. We're here as a result of the award of the contract that you gave us in May, and specific instructions to identify existing conditions on the waterfront promenade area. And we have found that there is a lot more information that is to be garnered over the summer season and then also into the fall. So I hope you enjoy this. A lot of our board members and involved parties are here. Renee McLaughlin is here. Ralph Beardsworth and Jim Allgwire are all involved in Historic Ketchikan, and we just have been really excited about this project. So we'll try to keep it short, but there's a lot here.
okay. Proceed.
A little bit about us. Historic Ketchikan, again, it's a private 501c3, and our organization, we're not just about old buildings. We're about historic preservation through economic development. And you can see the board members that we have. A lot of them, I've been there since the beginning in 1987. Jim Allgwire, Ralph Beardsworth, Sis Conan, and Rick Hardcastle, Deborah Hayden, Len Lawrence, and Dave Rubin, and our staff, Stephen Reeves and Renee McLaughlin. We meet religiously every Wednesday at 7:30 at Annabelle's. We've been meeting for forever, so you're all welcome to come and see us at any time if you like coffee and a lot of chatter.
Well, we have 5 projects going on. We're going to talk to you tonight about the waterfront. We also have those other projects that we mentioned there, including the derelict buildings project that we're working with your building department, and the Hopkins Alley revitalization project just now getting underway. That's a joint city and borough finance project. So what we're talking about tonight is this 1.3 mile run from Berth 4 on the north down to the end of the breakwater. A lot of the pieces are in place. We've really accomplished a lot over the last 5 or 10 years, just getting some of the pieces in place, but there's a lot of pieces missing. And that is one of the focus points of our work. We feel like this stretch of public waterfront is extremely unique. As you'll see in a minute, we visited a lot of other successful waterfront areas, and ours is one of the best, I think, in the world, potentially. All you need to do is walk from the end of the promenade to the other end, and you see, if you're looking at it as a visitor would, or just for you enjoying, if you walk that length, you see all of our history, you see all of the maritime interest of our community. It just needs to be all pieced together, and that's what this is really all about. Our focus right now is really the 1 million visitors that we have coming in this year. We have to deal with that, actually every year. We have to deal with that. Our waterfront, as we say, there's our front porch. We need to invite them in there in a careful way, and we need to enjoy our front porch too. By doing a good job with the promenade, we're going to help economic development a bunch by spreading the impacts throughout the town, so that places like Newtown and Stedman Street can also offer destination appeal to the visitors, and that increases spending in the community. It translates to longer port stays. There's a lot of good reasons to want to complete this waterfront promenade along that entire 1.3 mile route. We've talked a lot, cut in, Terry, whenever you want here. We've talked a lot with property owners, with interest groups, with individuals who are interested in the waterfront, and we've kind of come up for the moment with a set of principles that are directing us in our work. And that's that, first off, it needs to be for all of us. It's for visitors, for sure. We have to deal with that. It's also for us. We need to create a waterfront for all seasons. We want to be able to get our community down there and using the waterfront even on a day like this, maybe not a day like this. We want to connect the city to the waterfront. We need to look at we need to, again, recognize it's our front porch, and we need to look at ways of connecting our front porch to the rest of the community. So when you hear, as you have in the past from Newtown, and they feel like they're left out, there's a design solution to that. We think that's an important part of what we're doing here. We need to make it easy for people to enter and penetrate into our community and make it attractive to do so, and that also will contribute to economic development.
One of the things that that started this is that Waterfront Promenade was developed as an idea to disperse pedestrians as they come ashore. We would have no growth with the additional berths if we could not figure out a way to get people into the core of Ketchikan. You'd have no growth situation.
As we develop the waterfront, we want to remember that this is really our wonderful past. We wouldn't have Ketchikan today if it wasn't for the canneries, the fisheries, the maritime support services, the industry, the timber and wood industry that was a big part of the waterfront. And we need to kind of honor that and tell the story of that as we develop interpretation. We need to make sure everyone in the community has access, people of all ages. We need to make it possible for older people as well as families and younger people to enjoy it. And then we need to recognize that we're not going to do this overnight. We've got to just, I think the purpose of this work is to get a vision in place that we all can agree to, get a route that makes a lot of sense and the uses along it, and lay out a whole set of projects that can get done over time. Most of the communities we visited, it's been 10, 20, 30 years in the process of doing this. It kind of goes on forever, but we just need that vision set right now and then start working toward it. As we were asked as part of our work is to inventory all the conditions. There are many more than these here. For each one of these areas we did, we examined existing conditions, did maps kind of like this, where you look at lighting and all the various types of lighting we have along the waterfront, or public art. We do have a nice introduction to public art. A whole lot more could be done. And we looked at 15 or 18 categories of existing conditions that needed to be documented, and we've done that. We're not going to kind of take you through all of that. We, on our own time as volunteers, we went out and visited communities throughout the Northwest, some in Alaska, that have been successful developing their waterfronts. One of our favorites was Olympia. This is about a mile-long waterfront, kind of like the length of ours. Nowhere near as interesting as ours, but still an important waterfront. And we, again, walked it. This was actually taken on a cold April day when no one was out, but this time of year it's just packed with people. It's driven a lot of real estate development along it. It's become a very, very interesting public space. It was voted one of the top 10 public spaces in the U.S. this year, and they've done it through good design, use of wood, art along it. Places like on the lower left there, the covered area for entertainment venues and for people to get out of the weather and enjoy music or whatever wants to go on there. Port Angeles, you might want to talk about as an old Port Angeles.
Well, even though I've been here over almost 50 years, I was born in Port Angeles, Washington. And I'd just like to interject also, all of these places that are visited were done by board members on their own nickel. They have friends, relatives. They come back and report for the sake of the project. It's not being funded by anything other than purely loving, trying to make Ketchikan a better place. And so we report back, take pictures, and I visit this area a lot because I have relatives there. And that waterfront that you see in front of you, when I was growing up, was a small railroad. We had 5 mills in the downtown Port Angeles area. There's only one that exists right now. But they took that waterfront, and there was just a few welding shops and a junkyard. a wrecking yard. They developed that waterfront, and the spin off of that is a lot of volunteers, the streetscaping, the benches become memorials by families. They end up donating and paying for that. So when the city invests in the infrastructure, it grows on itself. The artists then compete to have the ability to put their artwork in that area. They had a Founder's Day in Metlakatla where they had native tribes come in long canoes just to this area, to that waterfront. They had a sand castle building competition from all over the world. People came and they imported sand and built it on that waterfront. I mean, there's just all kinds of different things happen when you create a better waterfront.
And a lot of these communities you may be familiar with, a lot of them in varying stages of development, all using a lot of common principles, some of which we've talked about. In this case, a lot of wood, a covered area in Paul's Bow that is used heavily. They even have a fire pit here that's used for a lot of celebrations on the left. Gig Harbor is kind of an upscale community, very good job with their interpretation. They've got a bunch of old net sheds they've restored and maintained, and it's a very cool waterfront, very much a part of their destination appeal. You have to kind of go out of your way to get to Gig Harbor. So some of the lessons learned, first off, is what we're doing right now. Let's get a master plan together and make sure we all agree on where we're going with this thing. Get the route tied down, have a unifying theme, graphics, pedestrian amenities, make sure that people understand that they are on the boardwalk and the details are consistent. Wood is very important. Wherever we can use it, wood is great. It ties the waterfront to the sea. It makes it a lot easier to walk on. You talk to any old person, they don't like walking on concrete. They want to walk on wood.
Why are you looking at me?
Yeah, I couldn't help it. Let's keep our working waterfront every way we can. Places like Union Machine Shop, the grids, wherever we can. Let's remember that this is our heritage and try to help keep it that way. Where we can, have places for performance, have places for kids to play, have art, more art yet along there, much like Olympia did. I think our artist community will really rise to the occasion. Make sure it's year-round use. Where we can, keep access to the water. We have 9 gangway ramps that get people down to the floats. That's wonderful for visitors. Most communities don't let you go down to the floats. I hope we always can. Where we have a few remnant beaches, like this one in the aerial below there at Stedman Street, get access to it. It's an interesting tidal experience. Gateways, by that we mean let's make sure we connect to the neighborhoods, make sure it's not just a lineal waterfront experience. We want to get people into the community. And then finally, historic interpretation. So much of our community grew along this waterfront, and we need to tell that story. We then have done a lot of just initial design concepts. These were meant to be just ideas, really. In this case, we talked with people at the Forest Service and others, and we came up with a couple of ideas that are meant to be really just ideas now. We have a lot more than these. The one on the right, for example, is to have a kiosk on the waterfront that has our 4 major species, and each part of that 4-part kiosk, when you talk about Sitka spruce, it's built in Sitka spruce, and it tells the story of that species and how it's been important to our community. That kind of interpretation is what we need to do, and we'll want to have a lot of ideas for interpretation for you, and then choose which ones and how we want to move forward. A lot of these don't need to be funded by city funds. We can find other funds to support or match city funds. I want to keep this short, so I'm just going to move through a little more quickly. We've looked at kind of all of the opportunities and problem areas and have sketches that kind of support solutions. Like, for example, on the left, this is the ramp over on Thomas Street. leads down to Thomas Basin. It's basically a way to clean it up, the garbage and other issues that go on right at that ramp. On the right is a maritime-themed play area designed that we're hoping could actually be back on the Salvation Army property. We don't have a deal on that yet for them, but that's the kind of thing we'll have before you. We've talked, and Terry, you might want to address this, and we've been talking to all the key property owners who either have buildings on the route, like say Tongass Trading, that we need to have them help make this a better waterfront.
It's tight in that area behind Tongass Trading, and we've met with Chris Parks and John Hayes, and they are very reluctant to give up any retail square footage. That's their lifeblood. But we convinced them to at least let us bring you some ideas as to what we can do in that area. We've also met with Jack Dawson several times on the area of where the logging show is, and that sheet pile problem, that dilemma that's been ongoing for a long time. There are solutions to it. The private sector have researched it. I had a lengthy conversation with Chuck Poole. He's got ideas. And Stephen has met with Rob Shearer. So we're trying to put all these links together. They're very important so that it is contiguous from beginning to end.
So in the case of Jack, we identify actually 5 options, and you don't need to go through these right now, but that's the idea, is just to begin this discussion with them and find some solutions and support so we can get especially this area over by the sheet pile resolved.
In fact, I think the grandstand for the logging show, they on their own are going to move it back about 20 feet in the near future. And that's what this line shows. It shows a photograph of it. That dotted line should probably be curved around the building, but on their own they're going to move that back. Isn't that what Rob told you?
Yeah, yes. Right. And I know city staff is familiar with that. We wanted to outline at least some of the capital projects that we'd like to be thinking about this, and focused on this coming year. This, of course, is on everyone's mind. We've got to solve this connection around the logging show and on over to Fish and Wildlife. And the solution is probably like the first phase that was done right here, is that yellow area points to right by the fish house. And we've sure had a lot of discussions, and I think we can help work with the property owners and the city to get this launched. Obviously, what's needed first is agreement about maybe not financial responsibility so much as what is it that we need to do to get the engineering done on it and the solution. Everyone's committed, though, to the promenade or boardwalk around this, so every property owner we've talked to is fully committed to it. We want to also, this coming year, work very closely with your Ports and Harbors Department. We think a lot of, a great job has been done getting berth 1 and 2 together, but there's a long way to go to make this a pedestrian-friendly and interesting environment. And we want to work with your Ports and Harbors Department now on all of the boardwalk furnishings that would go here. Things like benches and planters and garbage containers. These need to be consistent. They don't have to always be the same, but there needs to be a pretty consistent theme so that people know they're on the boardwalk and they can enjoy it.
Have an identity.
Yeah. Right now, as you know, it's kind of chaos when you get off berth 1 and get down when you get off your ship at berth 1 and get down in this area. There's nothing that tells you what to do, and we need to change that. Another project that we have on the list from last year that we think needs to be done is dealing with interpretive and wayfinding signage, especially out there on berth 1 and 2, but also perhaps as the first priority, but also moving into the community. Our old signs are now 20 years old, and the one on the left has a gunshot or something in it, and there's nothing much you can do about it. The wayfinding signs were never completed. No one likes them. They aren't very informative. They're out of date. We need to do this stuff. The colorful characters and places signs are real popular, but they're only on Stedman and Creek Street. We'd like to extend those. Another project that we think needs early attention is right now the The new bus shelter in lieu is all in place, but the boardwalk stops right where that line is. On the left, the DOT-funded boardwalk stops right there. We'd like to work again with Ports and Harbors when they're ready, if that ADA ramp is going to get replaced there, to make that link work. This is just one sketch of 5 or 6 we've looked at for a way to maintain the existing parking, deal with garbage and other stuff that's there, deal with an ADA ramp, and connect the 2 boardwalks together right there. So finally, sorry we're taking so long, but
We're almost done.
Next steps, we're going to keep working with the property owners. We've got an informal waterfront working group of a lot of interested people that we're going to bring together in a more formal way. We'd like, with your concurrence, to begin to get out to Chamber, Rotary, KVB, and others, and we want to have a workshop here in the next month or so, which we would get in much greater depth, and we'd hope you would attend that. And then finally, as we clarify everyone's thinking, move into finalize what projects we might be able to do this coming year. That's it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
If you could hit the line on that,
Mm-hmm.
we'll hit you with some questions.
Okay. Turn the overheads back on.
Thank you. No, that was pretty informative, and I see what direction you're going. I can't wait to see what we can do in the way of getting those capitals going. The only other, I see you have like 5 projects you're doing. When are we going to, not to move on to a different one, when are we going to hear anything on the Hopkins area?
We are just finishing the first phase of that project, which is a historic survey. Renee, who's here tonight, has been talking with all of the property owners. We have a really good documentation of the history, which is going to help us a lot in dealing with the actual redevelopment plan. We're just starting that. We're having our first public meeting on that in early October. So we're going to bring all the property owners together, and we're going to talk about not only the work we've accomplished on the historic survey, which is kind of a foundation document for it, but also we're going to talk about the range of ideas that are coming forward for addressing Hopkins Alley redevelopment. There's a bunch of ideas. There's a bunch of things that need to be done, not just 1 or 2.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Dick?
Yeah, the question is something we got on the agenda tonight, and that's that DOT MOU crossing Creek Street Bridge. In some ways, it's not real clear what they've got here. Do you understand what they're doing?
That's the phase 4 piece that's on your agenda tonight, is that right? Pardon me? Yeah, we don't know. We've not seen the document. I don't know even what's before you this evening. We were involved in it early on. We haven't heard anything since.
Okay, it's rather hard to tell whether they're widening the sidewalk alongside the bridge, and just what they're doing. I know there's a lot of people concerned about that walkway, and also I guess how clean the bridge is being kept, and also the fish guts that end up laying on it. And so it's something that we've got to figure out how to deal with, but not knowing exactly what this is, and maybe our engineers can explain it to us. But
What we do know
there's issues
is that
there we got to work with.
We do know there's a widening of the sidewalk from the federal building parking lot all the way down to almost to the ramp that goes into Thomas Basin, except for the bridge. The bridge is not going to be dealt with right now. That's another project that we could have had on our list for things to look at the coming year. But that work is a widening of the boardwalk, and that's been planned for quite a while. So we're familiar with that. We're just not familiar with the agreement that's before you this evening.
Bob?
Yeah, one of the things, and I talked to the assistant manager today a little bit about it, the state proposing a steel piling with a steel cap and glue lams for that particular item, and those glue lams are, I think, 24 by 5.5, and I suppose they're going with glue lams so they can make longer stands. Not my only guess. The problem is I don't know how well those are going to last in that southeast weather, and then when it comes time for us to maintain them and repair them, they're not a common material. I didn't know if there's a way we can shorten up those bends and use regular 4x12s for the stringers, and something a little more common to the area. I don't know how you guys felt about that.
Well, we haven't seen that.
No, we have not.
But we'd like to have the opportunity to review it and give you our comments.
Excellent. Good timing to show up. All right, anybody else? Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the work you guys do.
Yeah, that's good. All right, that brings us down to new business item 7A2, request by Hamilton and Carla Geller to surplus real property in Lar Street. One moment. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
I move the city council direct staff to respond to the request from Hamilton and Carla Geller relative to properties identified as USS 437, Block A lots 38 to 42 as determined appropriate by the city council.
We have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Marty, do you want to say anything?
No, not really. So we would just be looking at this with the possibility of surplusing it? We're not telling the people that we are surplusing it to them, is that correct?
That was my interpretation, correct, Carl?
If the council wants to move forward, you would start the formal process. We wanted to ascertain whether there was any interest on your part in even approaching the issue.
What kind of staff time and involvement would that be?
I'm going to ask the contracts grants administrator to come
Yeah, what are we asking them to do?
Morgan Berry, Public Works Contracts and Grants Administrator. In terms of staff time, it depends. It oftentimes depends on how complex the project ends up being. It can depend on how controversial, and it sounds like this one has potential to be controversial, the subject may be. There's impacts that the impact's just kind of hard to define. I guess in straight staff time, probably you're talking about some time for the attorney to write up an ordinance, and I can't speak for how long that takes. My time, somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 hours, maybe, between writing letters, memorandums, having to get an appraisal, securing title to the properties, and there's probably, I'd say, in the range of $2,000 of city costs just to begin before you even get into the platting.
For something that the value is $4,800.
The assessed value.
All right.
Well, well, hearing that Mr. Hudson and others have some issues, maybe we should send our response back to the interested bodies that they need to talk to their fellow property owners, and if there really isn't going to be able to get a easement through that one property, I don't see it ever happening. So maybe we should just direct them to make contact with their property owners before we do any work on it. KJ?
I just wanted to kind of, off the top of my head, I'm not real sure the city council should be getting involved in easements and stuff like that. Don't we have staff to do that?
Oh, I'm just saying direct
Right.
the management to tell the
It
property
seems
owners
to
to
me
deal
we
with it
start now,
before they
we're
come
gonna
back
have a
to
whole
us.
lot of this stuff coming up.
Bob?
Well, I think that there's also power lines running through this
Correct.
particular thing, so there's going to have to be a power line utility access easement if it was to go to private property, if somebody were to buy it. We'd have to have access to our facilities. So, I mean, we're going to get involved in easements one way or the other. Also, it sounds like there's a private sewer easement across that property also that would be come into consideration, and I think without the easement to access the property, I don't see any reason for us to go there, I guess.
I agree. Dick?
Yeah, to me, if we've got property that we have no need for and somebody wants it, then I think I'm like you, Lou. Let staff advertise this to people that if they're interested in, they can give us feedback, and if it looks like it's worthwhile and we want to tackle it, well, then we can tackle it. But I don't believe in keeping it in city hands if we don't have a predetermined use for it. So we We just need to see what kind of interest there is, and if there's more than one property owner interested, maybe it's worth more than $1,000, or it gets split up. It looks like it sits behind at least 3 different properties there, so maybe it gets busted up. I don't know.
There are 4 separate lots behind there. It's
38,
just
okay.
the way that it's drawn. It's consolidated into one, but there are actually 4 separate lots that the city owns in that area.
Mr. Mayor, maybe the best approach to take would be to, before the council taking any formal action, let staff notify the Gellers and the surrounding property owners. Interest has been expressed that before the council wants to take any formal action, we want to solicit public input to see if there is any opposition to the possible surplus and sale of the properties, so we can identify the issues that are out there, and then we can bring that back to you, and you can have a better feel for what might be involved, at least from the adjacent property owners.
Good idea, thank you, Carl. All right, does everybody agree with that direction?
There's been a motion on the table. Do we need a motion to defer?
There's direction.
No, we gave him some direction, that's all the thing was. Okay, thank you, Morgan. All right, that moves us down to item 7A3, Memorandum of Agreement, 2013-2015 STIP Waterfront Promenade Phase 3, Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities. Do we have a motion?
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I move the city council direct city manager to file comments with ADOT and PF relative to the design of the waterfront promenade phase 3 project and determine deemed appropriate by the city council.
Moved and seconded. Bob?
Yeah, I think that this project needs to move forward, and we need to keep the promenade work going. Like I said, I had a little bit of concerns about the glue lambs and the fact that somebody's going to maintain those at a later date are not a common deal. But it gives us the first process to get started on it. I like the wood decks. I looked at some of the stuff for the Stenford float and things like that. But I think that we can have Historic Ketchikan maybe give us some input on it also. It would be nice that all these promenades and things are somewhat similar and the same and attractive and all that kind of stuff, but better yet, that is durable and weatherproof, and we're going to have a lot of maintenance on.
Yeah, I like the idea of having Historic Ketchikan take a look too. Yes.
Yeah, I do too, because I think we need some feedback, but like I mentioned to Terry and Steve there with it, we need to figure out what's going to happen and who's got the responsibility for that thing as it becomes a fishing platform. Because I know I've had one person tell me in the last 2 days they got hooked in a shirt with a fishing hook going like this. And something's going to happen, and so whose responsibility is it? And how do we deal with it, and how do we clean it up? I like to say there's all kinds of questions that need to be dealt with DOT, even though it needs to be widened. How's it going to be handled?
Per the memorandum of agreement, we would have maintenance and operations of the boardwalk portion, not the sidewalk. Then you hit the bridge, and the bridge would remain Department of Transportation's responsibility, and it ends up being one of those difficult to adjudicate areas.
We need a fishing manager.
We've got a harbors director.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask
Yeah.
Mr. Berry, is there a deadline for comments on this to go back to DOT?
Not that I'm aware of. I can verify that following this meeting.
I would just, if we're going to pass it on to Historic Ketchikan, which I agree with, I don't think this is going to be an indefinite response period. That they're going to go to bid,
Probably November.
so they would have to do a pretty quick turnaround.
Correct.
Comments.
What I could do is send the documents over to Mr. Reeve and get it on the next agenda for Historic Ketchikan. That would put us at next Wednesday, and I could have the comments written up for the next council meeting.
That's what I would suggest, if that's agreeable
Yeah.
to the council.
Anybody, Bob?
Now, I understand that the funding went away, and then the funding came back, and now they're looking at progressing with this in 2014?
This winter.
This winter, yeah. And so I would not like to delay this to a point where we miss a season, and then those monies become in jeopardy again.
I think we've got a little window right now because this will also be going to the next planning commission meeting. They'll similarly be seeking concurrence from the planning commission. So I believe that will be close to or after the next council meeting. So we've got a grace period in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The memo here clearly says that DOT intends to bid the project this fall and have it constructed by tourist season next year, so we don't have a lot of time.
No.
And like I say, we need to think about how we're gonna manage the congestion on that bridge with the fishing pole.
Carl, is that, I know we've dealt with this issue before. Can we, did we try to stop fishing up there once before? Did we go through the state on that, or?
We did, in fact, I don't recall if it was at your suggestion, we actually put a ban on fishing on the bridge, as I recall.
Yeah, then I'm trying to remember what happened.
And there was quite the public
Upspray.
response to that, and we decided not to continue with that ban.
Well, the only way I can see it, other than if we could move them down to the dock on the right and the floats on the left down at Thomas Basin, or putting up a fish cleaning thing in between the sidewalk and the bridge somehow, a hose up there and a thing where they could clean fish.
Definitely need to get water to the bridge,
Yeah.
and probably.
Can we pass that on to the state?
We will do that. I have a note already written.
Okay.
The other thing that we may, if this becomes a big draw, which I anticipate it will be into that area, we may have to do some seasonal staffing down there, similar to what we do with crossing guards, and if we have to use CPD funds to pay for it.
I understand.
Use.
I understand. All right, anybody else have anything they want to add before Morgan comes back to us?
Lou?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Bob and Dick said. I think this is a project that we do need to move forward and be careful about, but being careful about the fact that we don't let this go too long, because I think it's very important to tie this in with the rest of our promenade, and we have an opportunity and we shouldn't get rid of that funding opportunity.
If I may,
You go for it.
there are a few elements taken into account in this project. There were concessions we had to make in order for this project to move forward. The initial proposal we submitted did not include costs for electrical upgrades. So there's light poles that are kind of in the midst of the promenade. So if in the future that becomes an obstruction, we would have to relocate those on our own dime. There's a transformer that KP Electric has been intending to replace in that area for, I'm going to say somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 years. They've got a pad for it, and that'll be smack in the center of the promenade. I think in terms of our master planning, this promenade is the first phase for this area. There are going to have to be other projects down the line. So there's certainly time for us to consider those future activities that are necessary.
All right. Thank you very much, Morgan. Go ahead, Bob.
So, are you expecting to have this at the next Wednesday meeting? Historic Catch
Correct.
Can?
I'll get the documents to them tomorrow.
So,
That's 7:30 Wednesday, right?
all right. Okay, that brings us.
7:30 a.m., right?
Yeah. Okay, that brings us down to item 7A4, budget transfer amendment number 3 to contract 1104 City Hall siding and roofing replacement, Basin and Associate Architects, Inc. We have a motion. It's a long one.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I move the City Council approve amendment number 3 to contract number 11-04 City Hall siding and roof replacement design with Brazen and Associate Architects, Inc. in the amount of $35,650 for the total contract cost of $277,534.73. Approve a budget transfer in the amount of $20,650 from the appropriated reserves of the Community Facility Development Fund to the 2013 City Hall siding and roof replacement front entry remodel capital account, authorized funding in the amount of $15,000 from the contract contingency and $20,650 from the 2013 City Hall siding and roofing replacement front entry remodel capital account, and direct the city manager to execute the contract amendment number 3 on behalf of the City Council.
we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Want to add anything, Bob?
Yeah, I know that we had some problems with the original product that we were going to put on the outside, and that not all claddings are the same, but I was just wondering if this is getting close to the end of the required redesigns for the Advid cladding that we're putting on there. Morgan?
It is. We are approaching. We've been going over the details for the cladding system, and basically everything we've been looking at has been a wash based on the change order we previously signed with Dawson. That's, at least at this point, any of the modifications have been within a
So this would be hopefully the final design on moving this thing forward and getting stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the mechanical system is all put to bed. In fact, it's almost entirely built at this point. The first floor, we've resolved, as far as I know, all the issues down there. And so really the only item that was remaining was the cladding, and I believe we're hitting the...
What are the major changes on that are of concern?
The most significant was a recognition on the part of the design team that there were two insulation strategies. The design as bid had 3 inches of rigid insulation or 2 inches of spray insulation, and that was not clearly translated through to the Nichiha system, but the 3 inches of insulation, rigid insulation, was required because of dew point issues and some other environmental factors. And so it required reviewing the depths of the studs to make sure that they would be able to handle the increased depth of the insulation. That was a fairly significant one, but I'm pretty sure we've hit the end of that.
Okay.
Dick, did you have something?
Yeah, just, if I'm reading this correctly, we have now exceeded the contingency we had for this design contract. Is that what I'm reading here?
Correct, but we've had one amendment, two amendments prior that were not within the contingency. These are truly changes to that are part of the contingency because the class.
Anyway, we've used up the contingency we had there, and now we're requesting some out of reserves.
Okay. Correct.
Call the roll, please.
Coos?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Harris?
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Severson?
Yes.
Olson?
Matt, you there?
I'm here. Someone coughed. Didn't hear the name. Yes.
Right. Okay. Carlson?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 6-0, brings us down to 785, award of contract 1302, Creek Street Trestle Repair, Phase 3, Quality Concrete and Landscape. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Dick.
I move the City Council approve contract number 13-2, Creek Street Trestle Repairs Phase 3 to Quality Concrete and Landscape in the amount of $223,500 and establish a 7% contingency in the amount of $15,980 for a total contract cost of $239,480 and approve funding in the amount of $239,480 from the Creek Street Trestle Repair Capital Account and direct the manager to execute the contract on behalf of the City Council.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Dick, do you want to add anything?
No, I don't think so. It's coming from monies that this borough graciously gave to the project, and something needs to be done.
Call the roll.
Carlson?
Yes.
Harris?
Aye.
Olson?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Severson?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
That passes 6-0. That brings us down to item 786, which was my item, which the developers up there in Copper Ridge are, ever since they've seen the memorandum where they're not going to be able to, or to plug into the sewer that they were working on. They are going to reevaluate and decide what to do, so I'd like just to pass over this item and move to 7, which I think we've already done, 7, 1, and 2. Correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
All right, that brings us down to vouchers. Ketchikan Daily News, $136. We have a motion.
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
I move for approval of vouchers to the Ketchikan Daily News in the amount of $136.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Harris?
Aye.
Booth? Yes. Severson?
Yeah.
West?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Yeah, that passes 6-0. That brings us down to manager's report. Carl, do you have any additions or anything?
Just a couple, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
It's good to be back, and it's good to be back in Ketchikan, as we all know and love it. Blowing and the rain coming down. I do want to assure the council that I have been partially briefed by some of the department heads, but I know paving is a area of interest. I drove yesterday and I did see some paving on 6th. Seacon is in town. Cliff, do you want to just come up and give a brief summary of that?
Good evening, everyone. Cliff Allen, Public Works Director, City Engineer. It's September, it's Ketchikan, and we stuck our neck out with mixed results. I think I don't have to rehash where we ended up this summer with other issues and then staffing limits. And I can't give enough credit to our staff for pulling this thing together late in the season with assistance from a consultant. But last weekend, when they were able to empty, mill, and pave the Centennial parking lot in a single weekend, you can't plan or you can't beg for something to go that well and turn out like it did that fast. I feared we'd be bogged down on that one for weeks and weeks. So I can't give enough credit to everyone involved there, from staff to contractors to the public in general who moved their vehicles in a timely manner. The paving has been completed now on 6th Avenue. The milling has been completed on 4th, 2nd. Oh boy. Was it Austin?
No, over in Bear Valley.
Austin, Valley Forge, thank
Valley
you.
Forge, yeah.
And a little patch down on Berth 4. We just have to wait this out, and we'll get another paving window in here. I'm reasonably confident of that. What they've done looks very good. We'll have some cost overruns because of the inevitable surprises we find when they mill that surface and find out it's a 1/2 inch thick instead of 3 inches. But that said, I really have to give a lot of credit to those involved, especially in that downtown parking lot.
Bob?
Cliff, what did we run into on Berth 4 with the rebar?
A surprise. They really wanted to scarify that surface a little bit, just so we had a good bond and to be sure we had enough thickness. There should not be any presence of steel reinforcing material within at least the first 2 inches of concrete, and they hit steel within the first 1/2 inch. That said, we had to stop immediately and get it cleaned up so we didn't have any tire hazards, cuts on tires in there. That said, we're revising it a little bit, and we will likely come back with a very fine grain mix without a lot of rock in it, and just put down a thin layer.
Are you going to have to jackhammer any of that?
No, we don't want to get into that infrastructure. We've talked about it, but that steel shouldn't be that close to the surface in the first place, and I don't want to speculate what we'll find if we open it up further. Just don't want to go there.
Thank you.
Deanne, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, it looked like they did some paving on Washington Street as well,
I missed it. Thank you.
and that is very, very nice. Very nice.
I'll pass that on.
Dick?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Cliff for quick action on Berth 4, because there was barriers blocking that, making it real tough, and we came in and cut that, it looked like 1-inch steel rods that were bent over there about 1 foot long almost, and he took care of it real promptly, so thank you.
Thank you.
Tom?
One more question. How are we doing on paving schedule for Jackson?
I think we're right about where we expected we would be. Again, there's another project. For the size of that project and the sheer lack of complaints, I feel like something's going wrong. You know, you just expect a lot of conflict in a neighborhood like that, and it's been going great. They're close to it. I drove through it myself on the weekend. I believe all of the utilities are now done on that leg of Jackson, and what remains is getting the final elements of curb and gutter in place and that base lift of asphalt.
So we'll put the ATV down this year.
Yeah, I want the base down, otherwise we'll have a nightmare trying to control the erosion on that. You can't plow this stuff. Again, don't want to go there. We only need a couple of good weather days to get that done. For what it's worth, we need much better weather for an overlay to get that tack to break. When it's on base, it's a little more forgiving.
Carl?
Just the other one, we did lay a report on the table tonight, just to give you forewarning that we'll be bringing back something relative to the replacement of the Nortel switch for the police department 911 system. That switch cannot be rehabbed. Nortel is no longer in existence, and it's a done deal. It's got to be replaced, so you'll be seeing that in the near future. That's all I've got.
Any questions on the report, Bob?
Well, I don't know if I saw it on the report here, but I understand that we had some issues with Turbine 3 at Ketchikan.
That was brought to my attention, Councilmember Severson, today at a electric department meeting. We'll be bringing back something for the first meeting in October, but what it appears to be, from my perspective, is these units are starting to show their age, and what I think you'll see in the budget is some capital improvement projects that will go over the next couple of years to assess, and if necessary, do whatever upgrades are necessary. The question then becomes, is anything going to have to be done in the current year? That's what we're working on, and we'll have something for you at the first meeting in October.
Is that something out of Bailey?
No, these are our other hydros.
Oh. Anybody else? Dick?
Yeah, it's a kind of a question that's not really in here, but it relates to Whitman. And the Co-op Relations Committee has got an item dealing with the Keeleys, with pickup line. And I read the memo, and I was surprised, I guess, and I don't know where the decision's been made at, that they shortened the pickup line, dropped it down, and sort of alluded that they weren't going to put the water in the lake, it was going to go in a pipe. And so I'm just hoping that that's not a decision been made, that it comes back to us so that we look at the alternatives and the cost, and it comes up, even if we've got to look for more money, we're able to decide what's the best in the long run, because this is a 100-year project, and we can't be shortening ourselves on it. And I'm sure it's coming back to us, but I just wanted to it was kind of a surprise to me that we're being looked at that way.
Councilmember Coos, it will come back to you, but it has been brought to the council. That whole issue was alluded to when the council approved change order number 4 to Dawson's contract at the August 1st meeting, and you authorized the procurement of those 2 valves. And the narrative that went along with that change order talked about what was in the memo that you saw before the Cooperative Relations Committee meeting for tomorrow. In the interim, between the August 1st and the meeting tomorrow, we've had conversations with the Forest Service, and they are in complete sync with the plan. They're endorsing it fully, that they think it's the best alternative that's out there that makes the most sense from everybody's perspective. And I'll get a copy of that letter.
What about the hatchery? Can they deal with that warm water?
Yeah, they seem to be on board now, and this will all be coming back to you because we haven't got it cost out yet.
Yeah.
And the question then becomes, even if it's the best alternative, is it something that we have the resources to fund through the contingency, the money that's been reprogrammed from BT, and potentially another source of funds that we're working on now?
Yeah. Well, the Forest Service will go along because it's less impact we have on them. But anyway, I'm just looking for long-term for the community, and whether it being higher up, putting it in the lake versus having to feed it into a pipe. And I must have missed, I knew there were 2 valves being talked about, but it didn't dawn on me why we were doing it, so.
Bob?
Yeah, I think one of the important questions, Carl, that I'm sure that Jen will have the answer to it is, when we took Achilles out, we went from 16 gigawatt per year to 12.5, I think it was. And I don't know what it changes putting it into the pipe rather than into the lake, if it changes anything, I don't know. But if there's an estimate for the added power resource for doing that, it would be.
I will get an answer to that.
Good question. All right. Seeing nothing else? City clerk's file?
Nothing on.
City attorney's file? He's missing. Future agenda items? Seeing none. Mayor and council comments? Dick?
Probably just one. Everybody should go vote for the next meeting, and we really need to make sure that hospital bond passes.
Thank you. Deanne?
There's been a lot of talk lately about who pays for what, the borough, the city, how borough residents don't get to cast their vote for things in the city, but then the borough is supposed to be chipping in and anting up for things. And with all those discussions back and forth, a lot of what I'm hearing from people is, one, it's ridiculous the way the two governments can't get along and work things out in some type of an orderly fashion. But what it really comes down to, and what I'm hearing from a lot of people, is why do we have to have two governments? If at some point we all can't get along, maybe it's time to address, and they aren't saying the word consolidation, the word now is unification. And I know that it's a subject that everyone can't agree on, but I'm shocked at how much I'm hearing about it now from people. And I just want to put it out there that at some point we need to learn how to work better together as the two or three governments and entities in this community, or perhaps it's time to address that situation again and just figure out something once and for all. But it's verging on the point of being embarrassing for our community as a whole, the way that the governments are not able to work in harmony. So it's not consolidation, it's unification.
Bob?
I have nothing. Thank you, Your Honor.
KJ?
No, sir.
Marty?
Yeah, just a couple of real brief things. I remember that fishing on the bridge thing that came up. It was Mayor Weinstein.
That's right.
Nearly getting hit in the head with a hook.
Yeah.
I think that got that off the ground. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and Dick brought it up, was Proposition 1 for the bond issue. One of the things that hasn't gotten a lot of mention is that the state has kicked in $15 million for this, and that's about a quarter of the project, because they realized the importance of this project and of the medical center to the region. So this is an opportunity to leverage that money that won't come around again without an amazing set of circumstances. So I really, as Councilmember Coos also said, urge people to vote for the medical center. I think it's a huge project for the city and for the region. Very important.
Thank you. As usual, I spent all earlier this week remembering to bring up a new future agenda item, which I can't remember now. And second of all, I'm going to be missing the cooperative relations meeting tomorrow, but I also have the ARP group at 1 o'clock to talk to them about the bond issue. So I'll be talking to them, and I keep getting texts from Penny, so I'm booked up for many more all through next week, I've already noticed. The end unification, we've already voted down once, but we can always try again. We voted down consolidation twice, and I agree with your frustrations, but until the borough votes in favor of it, borough residents, it's not going to go anywhere. The city has always been voted in favor of it. So, and I'm not trying to be one or other. It's just that then people outside the city have been concerned about their taxes. That's where we stand until they can feel comfortable about what might happen with their taxes is will make the difference in if it gets voted for or comes out ahead. So I understand. I have nothing else except, oh, Matt, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, I apologize profusely. Go ahead, say something.
That'll teach me not to show up, huh?
Hey, we're painting next week. Go ahead.
What about on the 3rd or 4th?
Yeah.
I wanted to say, have a good night, and please remember, get out and vote. And everyone should just get out and vote. It's important to hear your voice.
Thank you very much. Seeing nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Thank you, everybody. Good job.